This next story was found in the journal of an English man in the 1700s. His grandchildren found it in the attic of his house 250 years later.
To whomever shall find these writings, contained herein is the account of my expedition into the most remote and treacherous jungles of the Amazon. My name is Jonathan Cartwright, a humble scholar of botanicals from His Majesty's realm, driven by curiosity to explore lands scarcely charted by civilized man. The events recounted herein, I confess, seem most fantastical, yet upon my honour I swear to their truth. I implore thee, reader, approach these pages with an open heart, for what I experienced is beyond ordinary comprehension, existing in a realm between fevered dream and stark reality. These notes were penned in haste, in the dim candlelight of fearful nights, and have long rested forgotten, gathering dust in this attic sanctuary. May these words grant insight, or at least caution, to any who seek adventure without understanding the hidden perils of this untamed world. Jonathan Cartwright, 1742. I never thought I'd write about this. It feels surreal to recall even now, as if I'm remembering fragments of a dream or whispers of a past life. But this experience was real, etched into my mind so vividly that I still wake from dreams with my heart racing. It all started in a remote region of the Amazon, deep in a jungle barely touched by outsiders. My journey there began innocently enough. I was researching medicinal plants for a book I intended to write. It had always been my dream to delve deep into untouched corners of the world, documenting ancient knowledge before it was lost forever. I had a guide initially, an elderly man named Guillermo, who knew the jungle intimately. He was wiry and agile despite his age, moving effortlessly through dense undergrowth. But on the sixth day, Guillermo took me to a clearing and abruptly stopped.
From here, you go alone.
What do you mean alone? I asked, uneasy. But Guillermo shook his head, pressing a carved wooden charm into my palm.
If they find you worthy, they will help you, Estranho.
Without another word, he vanished into the foliage. I had no choice but to continue alone. Hours passed, and as darkness enveloped the jungle, faint drum beats began to echo around me, guiding me deeper. Eventually I reached a settlement unlike any I'd ever imagined. A village built seamlessly into towering trees and earth, blending naturally with the surroundings. It was as though the village had grown organically from the jungle itself. The tribe met me quietly, their eyes curious yet gentle. They wore intricate garments woven from fibres I'd never seen, adorned with bright feathers and shells. A woman approached me, her face marked by delicate lines painted with clay. Without speaking, she led me to a hut and gestured for me to sit. An elder appeared, offering me a small bowl filled with a dark, pungent liquid. His eyes, deep and knowing, held mine firmly.
You must drink.
I hesitated briefly, sensing the gravity of this moment, before lifting the bowl to my lips. The liquid was bitter, earthy, sending a shudder through my body. As the warmth spread through my veins, I felt my vision blur, consciousness slipping rapidly from my grasp. When I awoke, I was no longer in the village. Instead, I lay in a small wooden canoe, drifting gently on a slow-moving river. Dense, impenetrable jungle rose on both banks, lush and vivid, alive with the sounds of creatures unseen. But the tranquility shattered when I caught sight of movement on the shoreline, a dark shape weaving silently through the undergrowth. Fear gripped my chest. It was an animal, large and predatory, keeping pace effortlessly, hidden by shadows and thick vegetation. I could only glimpse brief flashes of its form, sleek, muscular, unnaturally graceful. Each time it moved, leaves rustled softly and branches shifted subtly. With a surge of panic, I grabbed the paddle and tried desperately to steer away, but the river current fought me, guiding me relentlessly downstream. The beast had never left the shore, always stalking, matching my pace with chilling precision. Nightfall came swiftly. The moon emerged, casting an ethereal glow across the water, and as darkness enveloped me, strange visions began. Whispers floated through the air, voices of friends long past, loved ones I'd failed or left behind. They spoke softly, urgently, words overlapping into a haunting melody that echoed deep in my bones. I saw my childhood home, familiar yet distorted, swallowed slowly by jungle vines. Faces emerged from shadows. My brother, who died young, smiling sadly. My father, stern and disappointed. Each vision intensified my fear, blending seamlessly with the sounds and smells of the jungle. Suddenly, around a river bend, a sight unfolded that took my breath away. A city emerged from the darkness, immense stone structures rising impossibly from the jungle. Towering temples shaped like spirals, walls intricately carved with symbols I couldn't understand. Buildings seemed built by logic, alien to anything I knew, perfectly symmetrical, yet unsettlingly organic. People moved through the streets, tall and slender, dressed in shimmering fabric reflecting moonlight like liquid silver. Their skin glowed faintly, eyes luminous, seemingly lit from within. They moved in rhythmic unity, engaged in tasks and rituals alien yet mesmerizing. But even as I marveled, the beast on the shore let out a low, chilling growl. Its presence was a reminder. This place was not mine to explore. I desperately paddled, trying to push past the city, feeling an overwhelming sadness. The inhabitants watched me, silent and expressionless, as though recognizing an intruder. For hours, or perhaps days, I drifted, visions blurring between reality and dreams. My senses were heightened, every colour intense, every sound magnified. The beast followed, never tiring, its presence a constant reminder of my vulnerability. Eventually, as dawn painted the sky in shades of soft pink and orange, I reached another clearing. Exhausted, dehydrated and disoriented, I managed to beach the canoe, collapsing onto the sandy bank. The beast remained hidden, still watching, still waiting. When I awoke again, I was back where Guillermo had left me days before. Yet the wooden charm remained tightly clutched in my hand, proof I hadn't dreamed it all. Since then I've tried desperately to rationalize the experience. Was it simply hallucination brought on by the mysterious concoction, or had I truly glimpsed a hidden civilization and something ancient and dangerous stalking just out of sight? Some nights as I lie awake, I swear I hear that soft padding of paws just beyond my vision. And though the jungle is far away, part of me remains there, drifting forever down that river of dreams and shadows.
The following story was submitted by someone who asked to remain anonymous. Their story was looked into as thoroughly as possible. We can't say if this really happened like they say, but they really were in that jungle when they claimed. What they experienced while hiking through dense jungle wasn't just strange. It was something no one has been able to explain. Before we go further, if you enjoy these kinds of stories, sit back, relax, and let this one unfold. Just maybe don't listen to it alone in the dark. You can't say you haven't been warned.
This story took place back in 2017, and to this day I haven't told anyone the full version. Yeah, partly because it sounds unbelievable, but mostly because I want to pretend it never happened. I don't even want to go back there in my mind. Look, I don't expect you to believe me, but all I ask is that you listen. Carefully. Even if you think I'm a liar, just listen. Especially if you've ever thought about hiking off-trail in the deeper parts of Central America. So anyway, I was in Guatemala. I was working with some small conservationist group. We were an NGO, but we never struggled to find funding. We were between assignments, and I thought, whilst I'm out here, it'd be a shame to not really get out, so I decided to do a solo trip through the Petén region. Not the usual tourist spots, either. I wanted to get away from everything. I've spent my time here cleaning up the mess of humanity. I want to see the jungle without the footprints of a dozen tourists in front of me. The first few days, wow, talk about paradise they went by in that way you dream about, but never actually think is possible. I'm talking everything. The sunlight breaking through the canopy in gold beams, birds I'd only seen in textbooks flying above me, and the constant living hum of the jungle. Man, I was really there. It was like I could feel Mother Earth breathing. But I'm no idiot. I stuck to my map, took compass bearings, and kept to the plan. It might be paradise, but I know how quickly it can turn. Then, on the fourth day, I noticed something out of place. Of course, looking back, it was obvious, but how many times have you seen something strange and not thought of it ever again? Yeah, wish I still had that naivety. It started with the stone, just a chunk sticking out from the ground, covered in moss. But its shape, I don't know, it just wasn't natural. It had grooves almost like these weird little symbols. I brushed the moss away and felt a series of depressions and lines carved way too deeply into the rock to make any sense. This was something made by someone or something. I marked the spot and kept walking. It was cool, but it was just a cool rock. We've all been to the beach before. But by the fifth stone, I knew I was following something. It was weird. I was curious, but I just kind of followed. They were spaced out in intervals, like these little trail markers, but each one a little more detailed. The fifth one had the unmistakable shape of a face, stylized in a way I recognized from Mayan and Aztec iconography. And this wasn't on any map I'd seen. You'd think as an academic I'd be excited, but something in my stomach, I thought I was just exhausted. But I camped nearby that night, and that was the first time I heard it. It was faint, almost lost in the chorus of crickets and frogs. A soft, resonant hum, like air moving through a tunnel. It came in pulses, rising and falling like breath. I thought maybe it was just the wind through the rocks, but the air had been still all day. I knew it was something, but I just laid there. I could feel the sweat on my body, but I couldn't move. The noise wasn't threatening. It didn't sound dangerous, just it shouldn't have been there. I laid completely still all night, but this, breathing, it carried on the whole night. The next morning, I found the entrance. It was buried beneath roots and ferns, half covered by a rock slide that must have happened decades ago. I only saw it because the vines had grown up and around the entrance. Well, that, and the fact I was more on edge than when I was 14. and my mum started talking about how it stunk of weed near the back garden. When I pulled them back, I found an archway cracked, ancient, and unmistakably carved by human hands. At its centre was a circular symbol I didn't recognise, like an eye wrapped in serpents. I stood there for a long time. Every instinct told me to leave it alone. My heart pounded so hard you could have heard it from 10 feet away. Run! Get out! Forget this! It was like some part of my brain was trying to warn me, desperate for me to listen to sense. But I didn't. I set a climbing line and went in with my flashlight and backup. Batteries. The air inside was dry and cool, and as I descended, the tunnel opened up into a large chamber. It was far too symmetrical to be natural. The walls had carvings, rows of them like some weird textbook, telling stories I couldn't read in a script I couldn't even guess at. I'm an academic. I can read Cyrillic, Greek. I can even recognize most Japanese, Chinese, and Korean symbols. This was something else entirely. I took photos, but they never developed properly. Not a single one. I know you probably don't believe me, but people know I went out into that jungle. They know I went with my camera, and I have a signed statement from the owner of the photography shop that I did tamper with the reels. They just didn't come out. Anyway, that first chamber led to another, and then another. The tunnels wound downward at strange angles. I marked every turn with chalk, careful to keep track. All of a sudden, it was like I wasn't afraid, not yet at least. It was like discovering a lost world. My earlier instincts had subsided, and I started to imagine this lost civilization. What would they be called? How will they be remembered? But then things started to change. I began to hear movement, subtle, distant, but definite, like someone dragging fabric across stone, or soft footsteps on dry dirt. Always just far enough away that I could never pinpoint it. Just this noise. I turned back, only to realise something I still can't explain. The chalk marks were gone. I know where I put them. I made them big, clear. But the walls were clean, almost polished. I should have panicked. Maybe I did in some deep primal way. But instead of running, I kept moving, looking for anything I recognised. The tunnels became narrower, colder. I started to see more carvings. There were faces again, some of them disturbingly modern looking. People with wide, empty eyes, faces distorted in terror. Then I heard the hum again, that sound I just couldn't place. Except this time, it wasn't faint. It was coming from below me, and it was growing louder. I pressed on. Don't ask me why. Curiosity, stubbornness, something deeper. Honestly, my best guess is just a terror so deep you refuse to acknowledge it. Eventually, I reached a large chamber, unlike the rest. The ceiling disappeared into darkness, and the floor was covered in strange circular holes like sockets. At the centre was a stone altar. I walked around it carefully and noticed a groove worn into the floor as if something heavy had been dragged around it in a circle, again and again and again and again. Then my light flickered, just once. But when it came back, I promise you, I swear on every god that anyone has ever believed. I was not alone. There was something at the edge of the chamber, not a person, too tall, too thin. I saw it just for a moment, less than a moment, the space between moments, long arms, legs that bent the wrong way, skin like pale stone. It didn't move, neither did I. The hum rose again, impossibly loud. I turned and ran as fast as my legs could take me, and then a few paces faster, like my very spirit was running a few steps ahead and pulling my body through the darkness. I didn't look back. Somehow, I made it back to the surface. I stumbled into the daylight, shaking, covered in dirt and in blood I couldn't explain. It wasn't mine, and I don't remember touching anything wet. I packed my gear and hiked non-stop until I hit a road, flagged a truck, and never said a word. I mean, sometimes I don't believe it either. I never told my conservationist group. I never told my old professors. I'm scared to even think about it this long. But, to this day, I still have dreams of that place. I still hear that inhuman hum. And sometimes, when I close my eyes, I see the tunnel entrance waiting. I don't know what I found. I only know I was never supposed to see it.
Thank you for listening and subscribe for more.